welcome to the Voice Mood. I'm your host, Olivia Peck, your local millennial voice teacher. I've been a voice coach for about 10 years now, and I love to answer questions about singing almost every week here. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat. I already see someone here, Hestia Vandal. Hello and welcome. Welcome, welcome. If you have any questions, I'd love to talk about singing with you. I have some questions from the week. Harsha, welcome. If you're new and you don't know me, hi. Hi, Alex. Oh my gosh. Thank y'all for checking in. I'm really excited because I had some questions this week about a fun topic vocal range. Oh boy. It's always such a mystery to so many. And so I am really excited to talk about it today and give you my hot takes as a voice teacher and kind of talk about some of the stuff that I see and some concerns people have about their range. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with some of the questions from the week. There are a couple here. So let's check it out. We've got all right. At Hestia Music, that's our girl right here. My lowest sits G3, F3 as my highest B flat 6 above A6 whistle note. I don't know where to classify myself. I can't belt high head voice and also I can belt high head voice and also chest voice. Can you tell me please what is my vocal type? So this is a good question, and when I think about your range, Hestia, I notice that G3, that being your lowest note, is probably a typical, honestly, alto or soprano range for low notes. I would say a lot of both altos and sopranos could sing that. So that's around here. Something like that. And then looking at your high range, this is a good thing to point out here that you're talking about, whistle tone. It would be your highest is B flat 6 above A6. So let's see, what's that? C4. Okay, so that's getting like all the way up there. Yeah, I mean, that would be, to me, if you're getting all the way up there, you are likely a soprano. Now, what we'll talk about today is where you are comfortable singing, because there are some altos that might honestly might be able to get up there. But they're squeaking it out. So it's all about where you naturally feel comfortable. So I can belt the whistle note as well. So if you feel, to me, what I'm hearing, I haven't heard you, so I really can't say definitively at all, you're this or that. And even with my students, they'll probably tell you that I'll not be super definitive, because it's one of those things that a lot of people have a pretty large range, and I don't want to put anybody in a box, but especially without hearing you, I'm not quite sure. But I would say if you feel really comfortable singing high, like you're saying, then I would say singing songs that other sopranos sing, other highest voices sing, is probably a good place to start if you're looking at songs. So you have a very wide open range, and it looks like you have a lot of options. But the question is, where are you most comfortable singing? That would be the thing to look at, I would say. All right. So we have a question here by Harsha. When singers talk about an open throat, what is happening to the larynx and surrounding area? Good question. And I'm going to answer this the best that I can here. When singers talk about an open throat, what is so when you hear open throat, it's one of those things that a lot of people or a lot of teachers say, but it doesn't always mean the same thing, okay? In my experience, open throat means lifting the soft palate, possibly lowering the larynx, kind of like what we do in more operatic singing. But I've also heard it being said for belting, just singing in general. So we have to think about when people say things and coaches say things um, and describe things. Everyone feels the sensations regarding singing in a different way. Just like everybody kind of describes how it feels when you breathe differently. So, in my opinion, it's when people say open throat, it means like lowering the larynx, lifting the soft palate, and you can hear me going, ah. And there is an element in singing where you do want to relax the throat muscles and make sure you're not squeezing. So that I think is at the heart of why people say that. And all I'm saying is I shy away from saying it because you could hear how I overdid it when I'm thinking opening the throat. Everybody kind of interprets things differently and talks about sensations of singing differently. So that's a really good question. And I hope that you find that interesting or helpful. But in my experience, that's what I think people mean by saying that. I don't think it's necessarily a technical term or thing, I would say. All right. Hi, Noah. Hey, I applied the feedback you gave me on a new song cover I did. Yay! I'm so glad. I want to hear how it went. That's awesome. Okay, Hestia says she's talking about her range. I want to develop my low notes. I'm comfortable singing high since my natural speaking is very high. Okay. Yes, that makes sense to me. So, if you have a naturally comfortable high speaking voice, a naturally high speaking voice, and you want to develop your low notes, first consider what low means to you. So, if your natural low basically might be higher than Lady Gaga's low. So looking at other artists and singers who have a naturally higher pitched voice, like Ariana Grande or Kristen Chenoweth, they have higher natural speaking voice, and thinking, where are their natural low voices? And if you're looking at developing it, when you're looking at developing your low range, and you have a comfortable high speaking voice, thinking about what is your voice doing when you're speaking, because often I'll say chest voice is similar to speaking voice, and going, hey, hey, and some people say feel the vibration here, or sometimes even adding a little bit of like nasal to it, hey, get it sort of forward, for a lack of better words, when you're thinking about opening up your lower range. Good topic, definitely. Let me know if any of that sounds good to you. Oops. Oh, yay, the new mic sounds good. Yes, this is a Samson. I got a new microphone because the other one I had, y'all will probably remember, I was holding it all the time. And I wanted a mic that I can put in the mic stand I already had. And I can plug this mic into my phone. I can plug it into my iPad, obviously. Also, I can, it's a USB mic. It's also an XLR mic. It's both. I'm pretty sure I can use it to perform or I can use it to record. And it's was compared to the Blue Yeti mic, but it was cheaper than the Blue Yeti mic. And the guy who did the review I talked about in the last video said it's even better with the sound windscreen. So that's why I got this one. Thought about it for a while. And the links to all the stuff that I use is in the description. They're all my little affiliate links and all that. Okay, you guys have some great questions. I'm so excited. All right, so let's go on to this next one. Oh, I've gotten this comment before about Taylor Swift. When Taylor belts, hi Peter, welcome. When Taylor belts, the veins in her throat become clearly visible. Doesn't that mean she's straining? I also find it difficult to sing when I look up. So how does she manage that without hurting her voice? Yes, that is something that people have noticed about Taylor. A lot of singers' veins show when they sing. I'm not a doctor, but I've consulted other voice teachers about this. I've been self-conscious about this in myself. If you notice when I talk, you'll see my veins when I talk. So that was a concern about myself for a long time. The conclusion I've come to talking to other professional teachers and kind of thinking about myself is no, you don't want to have like crazy tension in the neck. However, if you are a leaner person or, like me, I naturally have this vein showing all the time, even when I'm barely talking. So some people, it's just their body. And, there are singers who have sang for a really long time. They seem to be a-okay. It's just some people you can see their veins. And it's just how you're built. But what you're talking about too about lifting the head, that is tricky. The best I can say about that is you obviously don't want to lift your head too much when you sing, okay? Because it does cause tension around the larynx. You want your head to be tilted slightly down when you sing. And the thing is, when you are a performer and you're moving around and you're doing all these different things, to say there's one position you have to stay stuck in is unrealistic. And the key is just not staying stuck in a quote unquote unhealthy position for a long period of time. A lot of singers who have sang for a long time, they know their limits. They know, you know, how to keep it moving and to keep things loosened up and not get stuck in a position that's might compromise their voice. But if she's been doing that and she hasn't hurt herself and she's able to sing through a whole show, um, you gotta feel out the real life experience with the knowledge that we know about what's healthy and what's not. I mean, opera singers, they'll be laying down, they'll be sitting, they're running all around the stage when they sing. It's something you just have to learn how to sing in a way that your voice is free and your breath is able to move through you. Um, and as long as that's going on and you're not facing a lot of fatigue, then you should be okay. That's what I say. Noah says, "Do you have any tips for singing while breathing? I've been struggling a bit with singing and making sure I take enough breath. And also, I'm struggling with flipping sometimes on different notes." So, when you breathe, I always say let the air drop in silently. So, make sure your breath is silent for the most part. So, when you breathe, it's not a, it's the air just dropped in. That would be the first thing. Second thing would be make sure the breath size is correct, for lack of better words, for what you're doing. So I know in my lower range, I'm projecting a little bit. I want a bigger breath. If I'm singing my head voice opera style, I might take slightly larger breath. If I'm singing that in my mix, I am using the breath in a different way, maybe taking a smaller breath if I want that clarity. You start to learn these things about your range and you manage it accordingly. At first, it's a little clunky. It's a little clunky and you might take too big of a breath. It happens, or too small of a breath. You just kind of have to write it in your music. Okay, I need to take a smaller breath here. I need to take a bigger breath here and map out where you're going to breathe in the song so you can plan accordingly. It can become muscle memory, and after a while you start to just know instinctively this type of singing. I know what type of breath I'm going to take. I know about how when I have this long of a phrase, how big of a breath to take. That I feel like crazy. I'm using my hands way a lot. That's the idea though. Okay. So just focusing on writing it in and then getting used to that just like when you learn anything, how at first you have to really plan and you have to be kind of slow and be meticulous and practice things. And then it starts to become, well, I always do this. I know what to do now, that type of thing. Same with singing. And with the flipping, anytime you have a flip, so that's another word for a crack, a passaggio, a passaggi, a passage. Anytime you have a transition in your range, you want to do what I call threading the needle. So being a little gentler on that specific note that you're flipping on. I had a tenor explain it to me that it's like every time you go through a passaggio, it's like an hourglass shape, and the passaggio, those notes on in the passaggio are like going through the middle of that hourglass shape. So above that note, you might be able to open up more or use more intensity. Below those notes, you might be able to use more intensity. But going through the passaggio, you want to be gentle and not use too much breath pressure, not use too much intensity, um, push volume. You want to like ease through it, slide through it a little gentler. I hope that helps. Okay. Great questions. Okay, here we go. Another question from Hestia. Y'all have so many great questions. I'm very excited. How can I develop support? I feel like I push aggressively. I understand. From my abdomen, it's not smooth. Sometimes it builds up tension in my larynx. I forget to breathe. LOL. So, Hestia, you're touching on something that's very important, and there would be a lot of voice teachers like going like this, oh brava, great comment, because a lot of people these days have stopped using the word support because of this exact issue that you're talking about. We get told support, support, support your voice, and then what happens, you end up supporting maybe too much, for lack of better word, or you conflate supporting with squeezing or constricting or pushing, straining, reaching. And in actuality, breath support should be kind of scrapped. Support should be sort of scrapped. I say it sometimes, but it's not the best word because of how it's interpreted. A better word would be breathe and make sure you use the breath consistently and gently throughout your singing phrase. So I don't go, breath, I'm in the room. It's a typical Tuesday night. That's how I would maybe interpret supporting. It's like I'm breathing, I'm constricting, I'm squeezing, I'm using it, whatever. But really, it's more let the air drop in silently, and you kind of pull in your abdominal slowly throughout the phrase. I'm in the room. It's a typical Tuesday night. And you want just enough breath and sing through the phrase gently like that. Instead of, I'm in the room. Oh, oh, like really building it up. You want to train yourself to have control, and the control is sort of slowly and gently moving through your voice without getting too excited and too squeezy. But it's what a lot of us do. We get too excited, or we're told support, 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 or have better control is probably another word, where it's just conflated with pushing and a lot of energy and a lot of intensity, when in actuality, singing requires a, a, a gentleness, a lot of care, and a lot of like managing the breath in a way that isn't pushing. It's more um going with the flow. I don't know if that's a good description. I hope that helps. Let me know. I breathe from my mouth when I sing. I don't know how can flip it to my nose. Oh, well, I don't think that's a problem personally, to breathe through your mouth. I don't. I've heard people talk about, oh, breathe in your I had one friend who, she was an amazing soprano, and she told me one time, "Oh, I learned how to breathe through my nose and my mouth at the same time." So yeah, there's tons of schools of thought out there about breathing and how breathing from your nose and your mouth. You're gonna be fine if you just breathe through your mouth. The point is, when you breathe, whichever way you do it, you learn to do it in a way that you're not tensing up immediately when you breathe in, which I think is a habit for some people. They'll breathe in and it's audible. They take a giant breath or something. Um, and that's not necessary. When you're doing like pop music, for instance, most of the time you can take a speaking level breath. You do not need to overdo it on the breathing, really. There's even a whole technique, school of thought, speech to singing, I think it's called, that was all about how singing pop and contemporary commercial music is all about learning how to talk sing. And I think that's a little bit of a oversimplification of singing, in my opinion, but there's so much value in realizing it doesn't have to be that complicated. It doesn't, including breathing, including breathing. Okay. Could you please explain anatomy of larynx and laryngeal massage techniques? Good question. Peter? So the larynx, I'll do my best. I'm not a speech language pathologist. I'm not a trained professional in laryngeal massage, but I will tell you what I know. So the larynx is a box where your in your throat where your vocal folds live, and there's all kinds of muscles surrounding your larynx, and they're all connected to your throat and even your jaw. And just like you learn in grade school, the hip bones connect, everything's connected. So that's why when you learn to sing, your entire posture, and not to make you overthink it, but everything's connected. So you want to be aware of your posture, you want to be aware of your vowel shapes, because it's all connected to your larynx, which are connected to your vocal folds, which are the things that are vibrating. Now, when you talk about laryngeal massage, I can't give you the official like technique, but there are videos out there. Like I showed one on the channel one time on the live of Emily Kristen Morris, who's a Broadway star. She had like a special PT on her Broadway backstage um, crew, and she would like give the singers massages. So it is a thing. It definitely helps, I think, for performers to be aware that it is an option. But it's not something I even necessarily do every day, like in terms of massaging myself. But you know, being aware that it is something that you can do. It's just like being an athlete, giving an athlete a massage, for especially for people I think who use their voices a lot or are going through some sort of therapy. But I'm not an expert on that, but a typical one that I've just done is like massaging under here by the tongue, massaging around, the throat. And then I love this one. So y'all, your jaw muscle goes all the way up here. So even massaging up here can really unlock a little bit of tension, and then back here behind your head. And this is not a laryngeal massage. These are just little massage techniques that I think are really good for singers, not a doctor. But this is stuff that I've been taught, that I've always done, and I'll usually pass it on to pretty much all my students at some point if they're dealing with some um tension and they just need another thing for that. Okay. Monumental sound. Long time no see. I notice when I sing sitting, my breath sucks, and my singing does too. When I stand, I can sing on pitch and have better breath support. That's a really great thing to notice. So if you notice that about yourself, you know, that's great. You're aware and you can use that to move forward. So, you sing better when you stand, so stand. So, stand when you sing. And if you have to sit because it's the blocking in a musical, or for some reason you have to sit, which is probably going to be a rare occurrence, to know, what am I doing when I'm standing? How can I maximize my breath when I'm sitting? There are ways to kind of feel that out. But if you know you sing better when you stand, then stand when you sing. And that's the case, I think, for a good amount of people, especially when you're singing classical music or something that requires a bigger breath, or if you have a heavier voice, which um, might require a bigger breath than if you have a lighter voice. I've been still trying to find my voice. Any tips on that? Because sometimes when I sing, I sound good. Other times I think I suck. Oh, Noah, this is such a common feeling. And I mean, I don't want to say that to minimize what you're going through because it can feel so lonely on a singing journey, and you're not alone. A lot of people one day will love their voice, the next day not like their voice. In fact, today I was like, "Oh, I'll sing for the live a little bit to show you guys a demonstration." And I sang a little bit before to see how I was feeling about my voice because our voices are a little bit different day to day. It's our body, just like how our bodies feel different day to day. And some days you're going to like your voice more than others. That's normal. The trick is still pushing through, still learning to accept your voice. Now, when you're talking about, and my video about overthinking is really touches on that. If you want to find your true voice, I always tell people use your speaking voice as the metric of like what does your natural speaking voice sound like. So many of us put on layers of whispering quality, singing higher than we naturally really can go, or trying to do that, squeezing, all kind nasal. There's all kinds of things people do when they sing that they don't do when they speak. And starting with speaking and analyzing your speaking voice, the timbre of your speaking voice is a good place to go, okay, that my natural voice is warm. My natural voice is bright. My natural voice is dark. My natural voice. And even if you can't put words to it, trying to make your singing at first as boring as possible. This was a comment actually about that, and I really liked it. So Michelle said, sing in your boring voice and don't try to emulate anyone is a brilliant tip. Thank you. That was in my Find Your Mix video. She said, I struggle as a beginner and have a hard time liking my voice. I need to get comfortable with it to make it work. I'm going to move on and try your advice. Thank you. So, starting with, so instead of going, for instance, if I were to sing this Taylor Swift song, I'm in the room, it's a typical Tuesday night, like trying to sound like her. How do I speak it? I'm in the room. It's a typical Tuesday night. I'm in the room. It's a typical Tuesday night. What was better? I mean, maybe you liked the first one, but the point is you could hear my true voice come out in the second one, and you knew it was my voice because it just sounded more natural, open, less like pushed. A lot of people, they'll add some like layer. Now, I can add stuff to it after that. Like, I'm in the room. It's a typical Tuesday night. Maybe add a little spin. Okay. You can do that, but starting kind of bare bones is a good way to do it. Okay, here's a good question from oh, did I do that? Okay. I often sing flat when I've been singing for a while. Hey, Alex. Sometimes I start flat from the very first note, even during warm ups. What exercises can help me with this? Really good question. This is totally understandable. When you sing for a while, things get a little tired, and so maybe our breath becomes disengaged. I would say sing on a staccato note. So again, I'm going to use this. Let's say I'm singing, but she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts. Here how it's flat. Let's sing it on a staccato. But she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts. I really had to focus. I really had to use my breath. I wanted to be precise. That kind of helped clean it up, and it helped me focus in, lock in. So now I'm going to smooth it out. But she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts. Singing on a staccato also does technically help your vocal cords do the thing, like come together instead of being a little too, um, I guess, relaxed. So anyway, I would try that. Sing on a staccato. Another common issue is nasality. Nasality can cause people to be flat because the soft palate is less lifted if you have too much nasal in your voice. So you're going to want to, plug your nose. If you hear a lot of buzzing and you're singing, she wears short skirts. Uh-oh, too much nasal. She wears short skirts. I wear t-shirts. Do you want to have some nasal in your or do you have some nasal in your voice? Yeah, we all do when we do consonants. Like, um, you can't have all of it be not nasal at all because when you sing on a consonant, there might be a little bit of nasal. But the point is, you want the vowels to be as open as possible. For the most part. How can I deepen my tone? It's actually great. I'm doing great making it a little warm since it's naturally light, but I want to get a darker tone, Tina Turner, Whitney Houston type of tone. Great question. So, if you want a warmer tone or a darker tone, I would look to your vowel shaping. So, let's say I wanted to sing this Taylor Swift song but darken my tone. So I don't want to do she wears short skirts. I want to do something darker or warmer. The safe and easy way to do it without like going, she wears short skirts, like something I engage all these muscles. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is to start with a vowel shape. So instead of she wears short skirts, thinking she wears short skirts. Let's try it. Let's try it. But she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts. She wears short skirts. Could you hear the difference? Now, I didn't completely reinvent my voice, or I only was changing my vowel shape. And trust me, I had to focus a lot because I've sang this song, a few times, and I always sing it bright because that's the style that I go with, and that whatever. And it's also easier to sing it like that in my mix. But singing like a more dark tone, like Florence and the Machine, um, it would be a vowel situation. I would say that would be the place. Hestia, I used to sing like I'm speaking, but it sucked. OMG, it took me a little time to add colors to it. Adapted edge, a little controlled rasp. Now I like it. Okay, good. Yeah, so it can suck at first for sure. Oh my gosh, I was very resistant to the speaking voice like technique, I guess. Not that it's a whole technique or anything, but to really like take my foot off the gas, not try to get crazy, just sing very plainly like I'm speaking. It does suck. It sounds flat, it sounds boring, it feels boring, and that's how it should feel. Too many people, me included, will overdo everything. They want to feel it. So I really commend you, Hestia, for doing the hard thing. So after a while, though, you can adjust and hopefully you found some freedom in it. So you're able to like add some twists, like adding some grit, adding some this and that to it. How do professional singers maintain a stable larynx position while belting? Okay, so the best way I can answer this, when I hear stable larynx position while belting, I think a relaxed larynx and not a larynx that is moving up a lot. Like instead of doing, if you could see that instead of doing, if you could see that I'm the one, a really squeezed sound, you want to, in a mixed belt situation, which is kind of how I'm reading this comment, you would want to keep your larynx more relaxed, more like a speaking position, like how it is now, but be able to sing high, even though my larynx is more relaxed. So if you could see that I'm the one who understands you, when I'm singing like that very plainly, you can hear how boring it is. But then after a while, you can add but if you could see that I'm the one who understands you, little more intensity as you go. As you find that relaxed position, you can add a little bit more of that. But that's specifically talking about the mixed belt idea, which is how I describe what that is, and can easily kind of get hairy with technique with this, but that's how I would interpret the question. Okay. Also, mixed belt is, to me as a teacher, pretty synonymous with the whole tenors singing in their full voice, transitioning from their low, middle, and higher voice without going to falsetto. It, to me, is basically the same thing. In fact, that's how I originally learned to belt, was because I had tenor students and I was used to flipping to my head voice, but tenor voices typically they sing in their full voice, or they have to transition into what sounds like a full voice, but really it's more of like a what we call the mix, or making a lighter belty sound, a less heavy belt, for lack of better words. So there's so much to unpack there, but if you're a male presenting voice, that's very common, is like singing in a full voice higher, like your favorites, like Bruno Mars. Talking to the moon, I hope you're on the other side. That to me is like the same thing as how when I sing in a mix for you could see that it's the same idea. You're trying to make a belty heavy sound, but really you are mixing. You are lightening up, you're finding a ping to make it sound like you're singing very resonantly and or singing with a lot of volume and intensity, when really you're just finding that ping. You're finding a belty sound without pushing, without actually yelling. Hope that makes sense. Sometimes when I sing, my ear pops and I can't hear for a sec. Is that normal? What am I doing wrong? I don't know, Noah. I haven't heard that before. Sorry, I don't want to make you worry more. Have you I would go check out what's going on with the doctor. You might have a cold or something. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. But if your ears popping, I mean it could be like also your jaw, and you could just have something going on with that. Or when you're moving your jaw, you know, you could have you could think it's in your ear, but it's really like maybe something going on with something as simple as dry mouth. I don't think so. Sounds like it's your ear. But it could be just to say like don't worry too much, but I would definitely consult a doctor if you are concerned about it, cuz I don't know. But like I said, everything's connected, and you might be doing something that when you sing your it's causing that noise up, in your ear. Have you ever choked on stage or had MTD? Oh, I don't know what MTD is, or nodules. Anything. Oh god. Yeah, I used to get really bad stage fright. Like ever since I was a kid, I was super nervous kid. Like I would forget my lines in the church play and stuff. I was so nervous. And up into my adult life, I would get nervous for things. I would like black out on stage, not physically, but mentally I would just not remember anything from what I did. I would get so incredibly nervous, just horribly nervous, and it took me a while to figure it out. I mean, I think y'all, when you are going through a lot of nerves, or and I also did have a lot of laryngitis. I have a very sensitive voice, and I lived in Michigan. It was very dry, and I was totally overworked. I was a kind of a double major. So when you overwork yourself, when you don't feel supported, when you're emotionally going through it, just remembering like your body is your instrument, and your what you're going through emotionally in your life could affect your voice. And it, as much as we want it to be that freedom that we have when we're performing or being creative, sometimes that stuff that we're dealing with in our life affects us, and like I said, I was overworking my voice. I was not taking care of it. I also, maybe didn't feel supported at the time in voice lessons, not to the fault necessarily of my voice teachers, but just I was not maybe in a good fit or something. So, yeah. Yes, of course. I've dealt with, choking on stage for lack of better words, just being nervous and not knowing what I was doing and how to deal with it, and I read all these things about performance anxiety and yeah, I could go on and on, honestly. It gets better though. If you stick with it, you'll find something that'll help with you, and, yeah, if you have questions about that, let me know, 'cause I'd love to go through that, any more of that stuff with y'all if you are wondering. Can you please tell me how mix feels? I think I have chest voice and head voice, maybe sometimes the passaggio passage from chest to head, but I don't know if I can sing part of a song in mix. Good question. I'll tell you what different people have said about how it feels because for me, it might not feel the same exact way for you. Um, so, so to me, it feels like this light, easy, definitely freer than my chest voice and head voice. It feels like a whine. So when you go like, or like a whimper sound, like, or if you do a baby cry sound, ah, if you're truly nailing the mix, as we all like to say, if you really are creating that sound, it's not super nasally, it's not super heady, it's not here. It's very much ah, if you can make a meow, a very gentle meow sound, I'm willing to bet that's the feeling. If you can make a door creak sound, it's similar to that feeling. Door creak, you can kind of feel a little bit of a vibration here, which you don't necessarily feel in mixed voice super intensely. Some students will say it feels like this shape. Ah, that's what they'll say. I don't particularly feel open in my throat, but I've had students say it makes them feel like there's this opening in their throat back here. And I'll listen to them, and to me, it sounds like they're singing very healthily. So everybody's going to describe it differently. The point is, you don't want to feel it in your throat. It should feel gentle. It should feel you, um, even to me, it feels easier than I'm talking because when I talk, I tend to talk way too loud. I'm like practically yelling. So it's actually easier for me to sing in my mixed voice a lot of the time than when I'm talking. It should feel very easy breezy. Okay, Noah, I'm glad you discovered that about your jaw, and it looks like y'all are discussing this. So that's very good. I love to see it. OMG, you two had laryngitis initially. Great to see that you've come so far. Oh yes, I get laryngitis super easily. I still get it sometimes. So if you guys don't know, laryngitis is when you lose your voice. It's not necessarily, I guess it's an illness, but it's more of a physical side effect. So your vocal folds are swollen or going through it for one reason or another. Maybe you have a cold, maybe your voice is overused. And yeah, I am super susceptible to that. And it's a huge reason why I didn't pursue singing um, as a profession in the way that I'm going after this pop career, musical theater career, Broadway career. I genuinely don't think that I would be very happy because I would have to be really, really careful with my voice. The thing that drove me crazy in college is all these people could have a great time and not be concerned about their voice really. They could just get a good night's sleep and be fine. But I would have one, night out and I would just totally lose my voice. And a lot of people out there will say, "Oh my gosh, it's poor technique when people lose their voices." It's been very validating to realize that we all have different thresholds for voices. Some people have lighter voices. I certainly do. And some people were born with a little bit of a gap between their vocal folds, a bump on their vocal folds. So I've never been scoped, but I know I have a sensitive voice because of how careful I am with singing. And so, anyway, technique really helps, but sometimes people just don't have the stamina that others do. And that's okay. You just have to kind of manage that. Should the meow sound always be descending to be effective? Oh my gosh, this is a really good question, and I'm excited to answer this. So, recently, I was with a student, and I always do descending, starting high and going down, because descending generally causes, you to relax a little bit more, because as we get higher, sometimes people start squeezing, right? So, descending is a great way to gently get into your mix. However, if your mix is easier to access and you are freer in your lower range, then I would say ascending is fine. In fact, the other day I had a student and I was doing warm ups with her, and I realized that her mix was lower and easier to access low in her lower range. And so I did the opposite. I started lower with the meow and I went up higher. So instead of doing meow, 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 I did meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Hear the difference? And so I realized, oh my gosh, you got to keep yourself open minded, because things are not the same for every person, and you gotta feel it out. Every student is different. I had laryngitis one time. It sucks, but I recovered. Yes, it always is horrible. It's horrible. It's like, will I ever be the same? What is the significance of the hyoid bone? Oh my gosh, I feel like it's a test. Okay, good question. Hyoid bone is like this U-shaped bone. Please, someone fact check me, because I don't look at this every day. In your throat, it's a I have to see where it is, but in terms of like where it's positioned around the larynx, and I don't mean to say around the larynx as in it surrounds larynx. I mean, I can't remember exactly how to describe where it is, but it tilts when you sing higher, because of the muscles around your larynx. Honestly, not something I ever thought about until kind of recently, because it's something that I think other voice teachers talk about, and more it's more of a focus in certain singing techniques for sure. So, good question. I'm going to have to There's a really good website, trying to remember what it's called. If I remember, I'll put it in the comments after, when I do my little timestamps, about a website that goes through all the anatomy of, honestly, it's like your whole body. I think her whole website, it's like what your entire body is doing in relation to singing. I don't think of the hyoid bone that much, but it does move. It's kind of like a floating bone in your throat. I had laryngitis when I used to force rasp from my throat. Yeah, that's a thing. I would push a lot of air and it hurt a lot, so I got the vocal cords swollen. Sounds like a very unfun thing, but it's a common issue that people deal with. How can I sing without making all those weird faces and scrunching up? Good question. So I would say sing looking in the mirror, sing with on video, so you can watch yourself, see what you're doing. I'll 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 sing for you. You can sing without scrunching your face for show, or for sure, for show. What am I saying? Walk in the streets with you and your worn out jeans. You know, I think I do tell people a lot of the time to show their top teeth if they're kind of covering too much, like walk in the streets with you. And I can't even sing like that. So Sometimes people get in the habit too much of doing like a walk in the streets with you and your worn out jeans, but you also hear the sound changes, but they overdo it, or they might have, it's just it's another place where people tense up. So that's something you can relax, just relax your face a little bit more. But if a little bit of scrunch is helping you, that's not so bad. It's more the jaw that I'd be concerned about and your tongue. So, hope that helps. Hi. Hi. What's your vocal range when you can hit both very low notes but also high whistle notes? I'm genuinely confused about what my range is. This segues perfectly into what I was going to talk about today. So, when you're looking into your range, I'll demonstrate with mine so you can see what I didn't talk about in my latest video, but I probably should have. So so when you're looking at your vocal range, I know I've said this on the live before. You want to look at where you are most comfortable singing and where your voice is fullest. So whistle notes are there are basses who can squeeze out a whistle note, The point is, where is your full voice? Where are you singing most of the time? I had a good explanation I had when I was younger from voice teachers. It's like where sopranos, quote unquote sopranos, they can hang out in this upper range or this higher range. They can just hang out up there. They don't get fatigued from that easily, or not an unreasonable amount. It's just where they're comfortable singing. Same with basses. I know I'm not a bass because I can't sing like really super low. I know that I don't hang out down there, but I also know maybe I'm not like a true alto because I'm not super comfortable singing super low all the time or as much as in my upper range. And that I'll show you too what you can do. So just do like little slides and kind of monitor where you're comfortable. So for instance, let's check my lowest note. Okay. Ma, ma. Already that's like what I sing down there. Ma, I can't believe it. I would not sing that low. So that's a G3. So, that's about as low as I want to sing. Can I sing lower than that? Yes, I know I can. Maybe I'll sing a song that goes lower than a G3. But do I want to sing down there all the time? No. So I would say G3 is my lowest comfortable note, even though I can sing lower. Same thing with the high stuff. So let's try the high range. And right now I'm monitoring my mix. Okay, so this is a little advanced, but I'm going, where am I highest singing in like a more full voice? That's starting to get, after that, it's going to be pinched if I try to sing my mix higher than that. That's a D. So technically, I can sing higher, much higher than that, especially my head voice. But I know that if I'm singing my mix, that's about as high as I'm going to sing in my mix. Above that is going to be head voice, probably, or like kind of a not as comfortable mix. So, ma, 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 still singing in like a mix. Ma, ma, that's a mix, but I don't want to be singing up there all the time. And that's an A. There are some days I can't even get a C out. Today I can. I can't even always. So it's just okay. So I would say A is where normally I can get up to and I can comfortably sing an A. And I can sing higher than that, but I don't want to do that a lot. it's not super comfortable. So you can kind of see with hopefully with what I just did that what's most comfortable. There's what you can sing and there's what's most comfortable. And a lot of people who have a pretty big range are like, "Well, I can sing all of this." It's like, "Okay, well, where are your money notes? Where are your money notes?" All right. Let's keep going here. So, Peter's talking about Olivia Rodrigo. Thank you of saying that people with the name Olivia are awesome. Yeah, I love Olivia Rodrigo's driver's license song. It's actually a great song for finding your mix if you have a similar voice to her in terms of range, because the place that she belts, to me, it sounds like a mixed belt. I know we weren't perfect, but I never felt the way without you. It's so okay that I'm gone. That's you and me. So all of that is sitting in like a right in right in that money zone for maybe like a soprano singing their mix. I think I just sang it higher than it actually is, but that's something to think about with the driver's license. A lot of her songs sit in that nice little zone. So do Chapel Roan's. Great songs for finding your mix. Okay, we got a question here. I presume that we sing appropriately when we have a medium happy face, not an overly happy, sad face, or stressed expression. What do you say? Hi, Jessica24. Thanks for joining us. So, this is a really awesome assumption, I think, because I always tell people to sing with a little bit of a smile. When you smile, it helps lift your soft palate a little bit. When you smile a little bit in your cheeks. Now, if you were to smile, like you're saying, overly happy, like maybe too wide, and let's say I'm doing, she wears high heels with a little smile, as opposed to, she wears high heels, sounds a little more strained. I think you're right on about that. Uh, Sad face, think about, Laufey. When she sings, she has a little bit of this going on. A little more tall, maybe even bordering on sad, but she probably still has a little bit of lift in her cheeks. Something to think about. That's probably oversimplifying, but I think you're onto something, Jessica. I really do. I think that's a good comment. All right. I do sing awesome runs, Hestia said, but I sing in the genre of glam metal punk. How can I introduce vocal runs in the genre I sing? So I think you're talking about singing more pop as opposed to metal or glam metal punk. I would imitate, not imitate necessarily the timbre, but imitate the notes, for lack of a better word. Learn the exact runs from popular pop songs that you want to sing. So, looking at, I recommended like Tori Kelly songs. She's so pretty. You two look so great. It's time for me to move on now. So, I would look at Tori Kelly, Alicia Keys, other singers who do wonderful runs, Beyonce, wonderful runs, and learn the exact run. Learn the exact run they did. What's her name? The queen of riffs. She's a voice coach. Natalie. I forget her last name. She's awesome. She's like the riff lady. She has some great challenges for that. I would do that. Since I'm on T, I can hit A2, but it's like when I get there, it's like I can hit the note for a sec, then boom, nothing. Any ideas for what I can do? So anytime you have a note that like it's inconsistent, I guess, and maybe you're going through a transition, I always err on the side of gentleness, so sliding up to it first. So, seeing if you can hold it with a low intensity. Low intensity. Chances are what's happening, and this is just me making my best guess, is you're getting to that note and the air pressure, the intensity is just too much and it's kind of breaking. So, using your same approach you would use for going through a passaggio, going through a vocal break, and landing on that note through a slide or gently at first, and then seeing if you can hit it straight on after finding the right intensity for that particular note, if that makes sense. So instead of going like, let's say it's and you've got a smile, and I'm breaking on you've, and you've, and it breaks or whatever. Try doing, and you've got a smile, and you've got a smile, and slowly start to make it shorter and hitting it straight on after sliding around. That's what I would do. I used to be in a band, and oh, it took me a while to be confident to sing lower. Okay, yeah, people always say stuff, I feel like, about other people's voices, and it's like, you know, you take it with a grain of salt, y'all. When people start talking about your voice, even with a coach, get second opinions. A lot of my students have more than one voice teacher, or if I'm their teacher, I will tell them, "Hey, but do what feels good." I'm asking them, "How does that feel though?" Always. And I'm very confident in how I present information and what I know. I've had so many different students over the years, and I've seen a lot of what works, but I still get surprised because everyone is different. So, really, like every piece of advice, everything that said, if it works for you, great. But if it doesn't, ask yourself, is it because I'm not trying it all the way? Is it because maybe this doesn't work for me? Am I misinterpreting what is being said? Is the teacher maybe not explaining it? Or is this person kind of overgeneralizing a whole group of people, like sopranos can't sing? There are lots of sopranos who can sing very low. So that's just something to remember. Do. Let's see if there's questions in here. Does the size of larynx affect singing? Like males generally have a bulging larynx. I think you're talking about the Adam's apple. Um, so the size of your vocal cords, which are inside your larynx, so I imagine that varies in size. I'm actually not positive about that, about size of the larynx. That's not something I can definitively talk about, but I will say that the length of your vocal folds matters in terms of how high or low you can sing generally, naturally. Um, think about kids having short vocal folds. You know, they have high pitched voices. You know, case in point. Generally, if I have a student, I teach online. So if I have a student and I'm having trouble nailing down what their range is because they're a beginning singer, and I'm having a hard time hearing what their full voice is because people do all kinds of things when they sing. They might sing softer than their natural tone. They people do all sorts of stuff. So sometimes it's a little bit of a kind of figuring out, okay, what is your actual true sound? And I'll ask them sometimes, like, "How tall are you?" Because if I'm getting a sense, "Oh, you're actually pretty, a smaller person or a shorter person," that's interesting to me. I mean, it's not always 100%, like, if you're short, you're gonna have a high-pitched voice or something, but it's more information about them. If I can tell they kind of push in a lower range, I'm, like, getting a sense that they don't actually have a lower voice, but they might, like, try to sing low or something, like, lower than what's comfortable. I'll if I get the sense that, "Wait, I think you're more comfortable up in this part of your voice that you don't use," I'll be like, "Are you how tall are you?" I have done that before. It's not all the time that I'm asking people how tall they are in a voice lesson, but in specific cases, I might just try to get as much information as I can, um, in regards to that. Hope that helps. All right, I wanna show you guys one last thing about this. So, in my video, I talked about vocal range and how everybody has chest voice, head voice, mixed voice, but more specifically, everyone has a low range, a high range, and something in the middle. Now, labeling these things, chest voice, head voice, mixed voice, can be confusing for people. And so, if it makes sense to you, if you find it helpful, great. If not, you don't have to use this language. You do not have to subscribe to the whole chest voice, head voice thing. Something I talked about in the video is how, yeah, when you're in your lower range, your lower voice, you want to find what's comfortable in your low range where it's like more of a chesty sound. So I feel like an A below middle C if I'm going that's a A to E. That's about where it's comfortable for me to sing in my chest voice. That's my range. Okay. Now, I know if I go above an E though, I'm going to have to start moving into a lighter voice, either a mixed voice or a head voice, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. I have to change my technique. Now, if I want to have a more belty sound, I will use a mixed voice. So I'll do and then once I get up here, like I was doing earlier, I'm kind of maxing out of my mix. I can go higher in it maybe, but I also have my head voice as an option. Up there. So it's a way to label the style or the for lack of better word, technique or placement, some people call it. They're different sounds you make, and it also helps you navigate what's happening in your range. So I'm going to demonstrate what it looks like to sing this song in a comfortable versus uncomfortable versus moderately comfortable range. And again, I'm going to use this Taylor Swift song because that's the one I planned on just demonstrating, because it kind of hangs out in a couple of good zones and a lot of people know it. So here's the original key. Walk in the streets with you in your worn out jeans. I can't help thinking this is how it ought to be. Laughing on a park bench, thinking to, I can't read music apparently. Myself, isn't this easy? And you've got a smile that could light up this whole town. I haven't seen it. Okay, so it's pretty comfortable. Yada, yada, yada. Completely butchered the chords. I don't care. That's sitting around what I was doing earlier. So I could sing that around a chesty area and very comfortable. Now, let's say I made it lower. Based on what you know about my voice, would that be comfortable or uncomfortable? Probably a little less comfortable, right? So let's try it a little lower. Walk in the streets with you in your worn out jeans. It's already a little less comfortable. So let's try it a little higher. Do you think it'd be more comfortable or less? Probably about the same, right? Because it's still in a comfy range. Walk in the streets with you in your worn out jeans. I can't help thinking this is how it ought to be. Okay. So it's about the same, if not more comfortable, because naturally my voice is sitting a little higher. But let's get to the higher part, which is the other thing you want to check when you're adjusting a song to fit your voice. You want to check all the sections because it gets higher here. So let's say I want to keep it in this half step higher zone. She wears high heels, I wear sneakers. She's cheer captain and I'm on the bleachers, dreaming about the day when you wake up and find that's fine. It's getting, I can tell, close to like a little high. Find that what you're looking for has been here the whole time. I can feel that it's getting a little high. It's still comfortable, but let's see, that's about around B, A, So if I were to move that up a lot higher or even a whole step higher, I think it would be uncomfortable. So then that's a half step above the original. So let's move it. Oh gosh, this capo, this is embarrassing. It's like so high up. Good grief. Okay, so if I move it up, a half step, I don't even know. Jeez. That's like so awkward. You could see that I'm the one who understands you. That's really getting up there. Okay? That's really getting up there. I don't even want to do that. And also, this capo, this is absurd. All right, so let's move it back down. Let's see, it was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's move it back down to the original key. You could see that I'm the one who understands. You've been here all along, so why can't you see you belong with me? Very comfortable. Now, something about this is if you look at the screen, I actually have a pretty similar range as to what you see on the screen. So that purple part, I was at the top part of the purple part, if that makes sense. Top of my mixed voice for that. If I were to move it lower, I know my vocal cords would not be as easy singing in mix. So let's move it down a whole step from that and see how that sounds. If you could see that I'm the one who understands. You've been here all along, so why can't you? I need more breath along with me. You belong with me. So fine, but it was in some ways gave me different challenges. Different challenges. I needed more breath. I had a totally different tone. Totally different. I only moved it down a step. So this is the kind of thing to look at. Sorry, I butchered the guitar a little bit, guys, but I was a little bit more focused on yapping, apparently. All right, here we go. So I'm gonna end this soon. So I've been sort of a yap factory. And let's just look at any more of these questions here. I've been working on cardio and doing vocal warm-ups. Anytime y'all have questions about warm-ups, there's two things I'll say usually is like look at the type of singing you want to do and try to fit a warm-up routine to that. And two, I I really like the warm-ups that I have on my channel because they cover a lot of bases. So if you go to like my warm up playlist videos that I make, and let's say you want to explore a more poppy sound, I would check out the mixed voice relaxing warm up one, and then the other ones as well. I will give y'all a little bit of a special tidbit that I'll tell my students as well. When you do my warm ups that are on my channel, they're pretty general. So if you want a more poppy sound, when you do the warm ups, have that in mind. So if I'm doing the ma, I'm doing it in more of a basic head voice. And if that's comfortable, then do that. But if you know you want to improve a belt, a mixed belt, try doing it in the style of that. So instead of doing ma, maybe you want to do ma. If you're able to adjust like that, that would be my pro tip. That's a little bit of a challenge to do though. So keep that in mind. But if you get what I'm putting down, then great. Can you tell me how to sing opera better? I actually sing it good, but sometimes strain, I guess. Yeah. It's understandable. Every type of singing presents opportunities for straining. So when you're trying to sing opera, um, you want to look at more of these traditional old school pedagogy, maybe. So, um, looking at using your breath to in a little bit more of an intense way. So your breaths are a little bit bigger there. You're a little bit more concerned about lifting your soft palate and keeping it open. Oh, I was just doing this vibrato situation with a student last week, and I kept modeling like oh, 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 like when you're doing you want to keep it open, still nice and relaxed, but it's totally different than mixy in terms of like the space you need. But you also want to do that without opening too much, opening your throat too much. So this is why classical singing is hard to just, like give you tips about. I wish I could simply, but for me, I mean, it was like it's just like anything. It's like a sport, the best thing I can say is opera is just more open. So think more open, more lifted soft palate. Vowels are much more elongated. Oh, imitating more so like the more old school sound of like Judy Garland and a somewhere over the rainbow. That's overdoing it. But that idea is kind of everything's more elongated. Okay. Well, thank you for y'all's sweet comments and this was really sweet. I try my best. I am not perfect. I saw a post on Facebook by someone and it was like, "Don't trust voice teachers on the internet all the time. Everything's heavily edited." This is one reason I go live is so you can see all the flaws. Like it was kind of embarrassing when I was playing guitar and I practiced at D minor because I knew the angle was like awkward with the way I'm standing. And of course I messed it up. But it's like it's real. Um and I work on you when you work on things, you get better at them. I mean, it's as simple as that. Of course, we all have different abilities from the jump, a baseline. Some of us have more of an advantage. Like, I fortunately also had awesome parents who put me in singing lessons, things like that. But the point is I worked on that and you can get better. You can improve your skills. Like for me, I want to get better at my instruments. Um but I'm not perfect at that at all. I can't imitate Lenny Kravitz on guitar because I don't work on that. So it's like whatever you work on, whatever you put your focus on, you can improve, you can grow. And some of us have a little bit of an easier road than others, but if you stick with it, you're gonna improve. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but that's usually the case. And I'll tell you, like the students that immerse themselves in music, they're curious about multiple aspects of music, they grow a lot. So, anyways, this was really fun. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate every single one of you. And those of you who tuned in after the fact, hi, hey, hello. It's great to see you too. And watch out for the next video. If you want to take a voice lesson with me, you can sign up for my voice lessons on oliviapeck.com. And I'd love to meet you. I do have some openings on Wednesdays, actually. I have some openings on Wednesdays for sure, other days as well. Just reach out to me and we'll do a little assessment of your voice and see what's going on. So, thank y'all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe out there and I hope it's good weather where you are. You're happy and healthy and everybody's nice to you today. All right. Bye, y'all. See you.